Welcome back. Joining us now from the Politico newsroom, Politico senior political writer, Jonathan Martin. Jonathan, good to have you on this.
Happy day after Thanksgiving.
Yes, day after Turkey Day.
Thank you, Joe and Mika.
You know,
happy Turkey.
I cannot believe he went over to Target last night.
Yes.
In Old Town. He was there like all night.
I've been up all night, Joe. I've been up all night shopping.
Did you get any good sales?
I got a ton of good sales. There's going to be a lot of happy folks with stockings full of post-Thanksgiving treats come Christmas.
I love it.
But, Martin, it's actually an improvement, Target, because Jonathan usually shops in the gift store at Reagan National.
Yes, I know. So this is big. It's going to be a big year.
Bobbleheads.
It's going to be a big year.
Can we talk about the GOP media cocoon, Jonathan?
Oh, I love that.
This is a story I thought Joe would have some interest in. It's a passion of his, I know, and it's something I've been talking to folks for quite some time about, really before the election even ended, and then certainly in the weeks afterward, and that is the fact that increasingly the Republican Party has created a world unto itself. What began as an alternative to what they perceived as a biased media has become ultimately self-defeating and really corrosive. And again, this is folks who are in the party, who are both operatives and thinkers, who are Republicans who believe this, that because they can only talk to themselves nowadays, that they're not talking to the broader electorate. So when Election Day does come, and not only does Mitt Romney not win, but President Obama wins convincingly to the tune of 332 electoral votes, there is widespread denial and shock among a lot of folks in the conservative world. And what happened was, I think Election Day finally prompted a lot of younger conservatives to go public and say what Joe's been saying for some time, which is we've got to get out of the bubble.
Well, you know, and you had a great article on this last week where you quoted somebody that said Republicans live in an era where they can basically they can buy on-demand reality.
Right.
And
right.
We saw this day in and day out, and it made me so angry during the campaign where a pollster, a certain pollster would put out a poll that just was disconnected from reality, right. And then a big website would pick it up, and then a cable channel and talk radio stations would follow it. And they created this every single day. So 2 weeks ago, you actually had Republicans thinking Mitt Romney was going to win 400 electoral votes.
And, Joe, it's very self-reassuring, but reality intrudes harshly on Election Day when it turns out that not only isn't Romney winning in a landslide, Romney's going to get thumped convincingly. And I think that's what has prompted a lot of people to finally say, we've got to find a way to communicate to a broader community. And, by the way, it's not just the Fox, talk radio, Drudge. It's bigger than that. Technology has enabled folks to basically create their own front page. Facebook, Twitter, and the email inbox has become the new front page of the 21st century. However, you can basically tune out any views that you don't agree with. So you can essentially curate whatever version of reality you want and see that every day on Facebook, on Twitter, and email, and see nothing else.
Well, Jonathan, you alluded to it. I will tell you, I started talking about the problems with this party a year ago as far as this nomination process.
Yeah.
I dared to say that the convention wasn't as effective as the Democrats' convention.
Right.
We got absolutely slammed. A week later, the Romney campaign was admitting it privately. The day after, and this isn't about me, this is about any conservative critic that stands up and says, you know what, maybe he shouldn't have done that Libyan press conference the day after an ambassador is killed. Of course, I mean, a guy that writes for National Review, whose name I won't even mention, goes absolutely ballistic. The next day, Romney's top foreign policy people are saying, boy, we really screwed up. I mean, there's just such denial, John Heilman, that it created this feedback loop that allowed them to get slaughtered.
Yeah, and, you know, it's not, I mean, Jonathan makes the point in the piece he wrote a little while ago about this, that, you know, Democrats went through this, you know, for a period of time in the 70s and 80s where they were in that same closed feedback loop and where the party got disconnected from the reality of what America now looked like, you know, and they were dragged back by their own retrograde base. And something has to happen. It takes institutional leadership. You know, it takes personal leadership. You need to have transformative figures in the party. You need to have a focus on how to broaden the party in terms of policy and substance. But this outlook thing is really new. And it's this thing that this is something they didn't confront then. You know, 20 years ago, you had guys like Nicholas Negroponte up at the Media Lab who said, someday we're going to have the Daily Me. and you're going to be able, there's not going to be the New York Times, and there's going to be, everything's going to be confirmation bias. We're just going to create news products that feed our own biases. And we are very, very close to that reality being here now. And that's something that it's not as clear how a political party deals with that, because it's a big part of the media and technological environment that just has never existed before, at least in our lifetimes.
And John, you paper over it in part by having a leader. The Democrats have their own sort of burgeoning parallel reality as well.
Of course.
But the difference is twofold. First of all, the Democratic ecosystem is bigger because Democrats have, NPR liberals, and they have sort of other kind of, the nation liberals, and it's a much more diverse sort of system. The other important difference is this. The Republican Party, really since the end of the Bush years, going on 6 years now, has not had a leader. And so into that vacuum comes what I call entertainment-driven conservatives, whose incentives are not to get 50.1% of the vote, but are to be more provocative and more outlandish and more extreme, because that's what gets clicks and viewers and sells books. So their very incentive is not to help the party, it's to help their own bottom line. And Democrats...
It's the Carnival Barker caucus.
Right. And John, something I've been talking about nonstop is that it's a great business model. It's niche marketing, though. And I've brought it up, John, for years now. The question is this going to help Republicans win Bucks County, Pennsylvania? Is it going to help us win the I-4 corridor? I've repeated that nonstop. And guess what? There are a lot of people who sold a lot of books over the past 4 years, had a lot of listeners on radio and TV, that wrote a lot of inflammatory columns and made tens of millions of dollars. But guess what? None of those people could win in any of these swing areas. In fact, they would get slaughtered.
Right.
And so we got slaughtered.
I think the question is, and Jonathan alludes to this, it's leadership. And if, to take the analogy back, where's the Republican Leadership Council? If Bill Clinton and the DLC stepped in and curbed the excesses of liberalism, making the Democratic Party more electable, and now becoming the greatest president ever, which he seems to be in popular memory, where is the Republican, the conservative voice that's going to come and say, we need to find a center?
Yeah. Well, and what's so important about that, I think, about what's forgotten about Clinton, people think about Clinton as having brought the party to the center and being a moderating force. But Clinton and Gore and a lot of those people were modernizing forces. They were the ones who started talking about globalization and information technology and the new economy. Those guys were, as much as anything, about being forward-looking to what the new reality of America and the world look like, as much as like we're going to move to the right or going to move to the center. And that's as much as anything what Republicans, it seems to me, need to do. You had Matt Lewis at the Daily Caller who did a piece, again, a few weeks ago, right after the election, who said conservatives don't need to moderate, they need to modernize. Right. And you can still be conservative and have a commitment to conservative principles and be attuned to the new 21st century realities of America.
Who's the person who's going to help them come to their senses and lead that way?
I think that is a huge question.
All right, Jonathan Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Happy holidays, guys.
We look forward to our bobbleheads.
Yes, I want the bobblehead.
The rising cost of obesity on our nation's employers. Dr. Nancy Snyderman joins us next, right here on Morning Joe.